Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're here, we're alive. I want to thank you all for joining me today. And I'm very excited because we have a very, very special guest, good brother by the name of Jecorey Arthur. A lot of you may already know who he is, some of you may not, but you're definitely going to get to know him today. And I'm very happy and excited for this episode because we're going to dive deep into the importance of local politics. You know, me and Rob were beating that into the ground quite a bit last year. And that's why we have Jecorey on, so that he could help us get a better grasp on why it's important and why we need to really invest as much time as we can into local politics, just as equally as much as we do in what's going on nationally. So we all know who Rob is. You know, Jecorey, you want to introduce yourself, brother?
Peace, what's going on? I'm Jecorey Arthur, councilman, professor, musician in Louisville, Kentucky, the city of Muhammad Ali, Breonna Taylor, and a lot of people don't know this, but the Jim Crow person was actually a slave in Louisville, Kentucky. A white man saw him, painted his face, and toured the country doing minstrel music.
That I didn't know. That I had no idea about. And also, too, I want to shout out to Ryan Glenn, who's in the building. He is a writer for tdnewsnetwork.com. Also, too, as per usual, if you're new to this channel, don't watch this video. Now, what do I mean by that? Hit the quick pause button. And before you watch this video, go over to the homepage and watch the set of videos that says start here. And the reason that I always say that is because on this channel and on this particular show, we like to have a little fun. We're very casual. Me and Rob may have our little banters back and forth, but I want you to not get the show misconstrued with the kind of banter that we have. Also, I want you to know that there is a level of seriousness that we have on this channel as well, and it's better expressed through my normal commentary videos. Okay, so I always want to clear that up because a lot of times the seriousness and the jokes, you know, people can get lost in the jokes. So I just want to make that clear. But with that being said, welcome to the show, welcome to the channel, and let's get into the importance of voting locally and local politics. Now, Jecorey, one of the critiques that I get when I talk about local politics, right, is that people say overall, if politics were going to work, right, if voting worked, it would have worked for us already. Politics would have worked for us already if this was a thing that was actually useful to us, right? So I often say that if it works for other people, which we've seen it work right now in New York with the immigrant community, I'm sure you're very well aware, Jecorey, that in New York, now non-citizens can vote, right, in local elections. This is something that was done by way of local politics and city council. So if immigrants essentially can come to the community, can come into America, get their citizenship, enter into city council, and make the kind of changes that we've seen over there, then the question is then, why can't we do it for ourselves, right? So then it comes back to the question and the critique that people give when they say, oh, politics doesn't work, voting doesn't work. What's your answer to that, Jecorey?
You got toolboxes at the crib?
Yes.
I ask that because people who complain about voting and then politics not working, it would almost be the same as taking a toolbox and only using the flathead screwdriver every time you needed that toolbox. You're only using one tool. You're only using your vote. There are so many other tools in that toolbox, in that shed, that you can take out and use in politics, but we don't use it. For some reason, we're just taught to vote and then close our eyes and go to sleep, and we'll have some dreams and everything will be all good. But that's not how reality works. And we also have been backed into a corner to think that only politicians can practice politics. That would be like a cosmetician being the only person who could apply makeup, or a musician being the only person who could practice music, or a mathematician being the only person who did math. A politician might be the expert in the field, or they might get paid in that field, but everyone should have access and practice the art of politics. Everyone has to. So that's what I would say to anybody who thinks voting is simply the answer. That's never just been the answer. It's the vote plus every other tool that you have in front of you.
Exactly. Now, Also, too, one of the things that I've noticed is that, and me and Rob had this conversation behind the scenes off camera once before. Rob was actually telling me that he thinks that there is almost a deliberate effort um, to keep us stuck on national politics versus voting locally, right? And taking part in local politics. Local politics, really, in my opinion, from my lived experience, seems to be what impacts us the most, more than what happens nationally concerning, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all the talking points that we usually go around. But there's not a real focus on it. Does it appear to be that there's kind of a deliberate attempt to kind of push more of a focus, have us more focused on what's going on nationally versus locally?
I think to a certain extent, and you got to realize that like when you get defeated on the national level in terms of like your political interests and you just give up and you kind of start being cynical about everything, you don't realize what's right in front of you with politics at the local level. I'll give you an example. The American Rescue Plan Act, nothing in there specific for Black people, nothing for us to be really interested in and think that we got a W. But what you didn't realize after that passed Congress and after President Jim Crow Joe Biden signed it into law is that it sent hundreds of billions of dollars to local governments. And guess who decides what happens with that money? Your city council, your board of aldermen, your city commissioners, your local legislator decided what happened with that money. In Louisville, we got 388 million. So I had to scrap and fight to make sure that my constituents benefited from those dollars. But you wouldn't realize that if you only paid attention to national politics, that money trickled down. And if you didn't have anything to do with deciding where those allocations went, again, you didn't pick up all the tools in your toolbox in terms of politics, and you got left out. You got left behind.
So then once again, so with that being said, what you just said, that goes on to highlight why, local politics and city council and things like that matter. Because most people don't even know and understand how these things come about. Like you said, the American Rescue Plan, it comes into law. Money is now divided and going throughout different states and cities. And if you don't have the right people in office like Jecorey, that's going to fight for you to make sure that their constituents get what they need in his district, well, then the money just essentially goes nowhere. At least it goes nowhere concerning helping the people of the community. Now, Rob, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, actually, I think I don't think that there's ever really been a strategic plan on how to vote and what to vote for. Honestly, like in my opinion, I don't think that people take enough time to even understand the process because we deal with a lot of people that have defeatist attitudes. And I think that we also deal with people who are not properly informed. So it's a little bit easier to just say, well, this doesn't work. And then another thing is too, that toolbox analogy, that was a real good analogy. Another thing that I don't think that we do is I don't think that we take the time to understand exactly how it is that these things work. Because see, the thing is that exactly what he was saying is something that we talked about as far as New York. The Chinatown got $20 million. There was 5 allocations of $20 million from some federal grant. Now, the thing is that I don't know where this came from, but there's been this thing about specifically for Black people. And here's my thing. I agree. We need to get things specifically for Black people, right? But the problem is that we're in a situation where it's not a buffet. There's a piece of meat that's just thrown down and we all have to fight for it. So we're either going to fight and get our piece and then we can build for ourselves and hammer for things for Black people later, or we can just say, well, we're just going to chalk it up to it wasn't for Black people. I like his approach because what he was saying was that if you understand how to put your local politicians into place, they can filter that federal money and at least get some of it for you. You can't just give up. if you just give up, then you need to have an alternative plan. And from what I've heard, the only alternative plan that most people have are cliches that we've heard year after year after year after year, which those haven't done anything for Black people either. So, you know.
Absolutely. Now, what exactly were you able to do, Jecorey, with the money that you were able to fight for out of the American Rescue Plan?
So the U.S. Department of Treasury actually encourages every local government, every state government to engage constituents around their priorities. Now, I say that because you watching this video, you might not realize that your city council or your mayor or anybody in between was supposed to ask you your opinion on this money. And if they didn't, they did not follow the Treasury's guidelines, which means they are not in compliance with the way that this money is supposed to be spent. So that in itself is a point of protest that you can use. But in Louisville, we followed that guideline, and I made sure of it. There is 151 pages of the initial rules that came out. I combed through them. I had an understanding of what the money could and could not be used for. And when the Treasury guidelines came out, when the money hit, when we did our feedback, I made sure that I stormed social media. I picked up my phone and I called as many people as I could. I texted as many people as I could. I emailed, and it wasn't just me, because as I said, everybody should do politics. We have folks phone banking. We have folks working with their networks to get them to chime in on priorities for the American Rescue Plan dollars. And what rose to the top of all of the feedback for us was houselessness, affordable housing, homelessness. We had public safety in there. We had all these priorities that were really driven by community, because we had those folks flooding the surveys. So then when we turned around, the council had to introduce a resolution that said, this is what we're going to prioritize when we spend the money. Guess what was at the very top? Everything that me and my folks decided to say should be at the very top. So then when we started to allocate the dollars, that's what we got. We got exactly what we wanted to get. And I'll give you one example. 388 million. Out of that money, we were able to pull in 100 million specifically for houselessness, which in Louisville, Kentucky, 78%, we're a quarter of the population. 78% of the unsheltered families are Black, living under the expressways, living in the deep woods, living in the alleyways of our city. They have been forgotten about. And in some cases, people try to just kind of dust them away, shoot them away as if they don't exist. They don't want them to be here. We made sure we wrestled that money and we got it for our folks. 100 million. And that's just one example. We also were able to get 15 million for the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. That is the Blackest department in our city government that does violence intervention and prevention work, literally going to hospitals when brothers are shot and they survive to make sure they don't retaliate, and they give them wraparound services. And we're also about to get some funding for our HBCU, new community centers in the Black community, new libraries in the Black community. The list goes on. But we only were able to get that because we worked with the Black community and our allies to make sure that was a priority on the front end. So then when I went into that council chamber and I'm arguing for certain items, I was just reinforcing what thousands of people around the city already said. And that's the way that we were able to get money from that program.
Now, not to take away from this great discussion, but the creator in me right now, the content creator in me is really upset because I started out with the normal, hey, guys, don't watch this video right away because we going with the jokes and whoop, whoop, whoop. And in my head, I'm like, man, we started this off dumb serious. Like Jecorey going in is super serious. Like, you fumbled the ball on that intro. Dang.
It's all good. We got some jokes.
That's hilarious. Sometimes you gotta go right for the juggler, man. Like you just gotta go right for the juggler. Like just forget it. Just
the whole time we going and Jecorey's going in, I'm thinking to myself, you idiot, why did you do that? You should have just gone ahead and just got this thing going. but let's get back into it, man. One of the things that I think I remember once, Jecorey, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I saw you tweeted this out once before, right? You said that once you got into office, right, in Louisville, you notice that everybody that's currently in office that was there before you, they know all of the problems and the issues that the Black community face in Louisville. They already know what they are. It's just a matter of getting them to do it, right? Am I getting that correct? Like, when you got into office, did you like come to the realization after, speaking with all the other people that are involved in local politics in Louisville, you started to realize real quick, like, oh my God, they know what's going on. They're just kind of not doing anything.
Yeah, I think I was referencing, people say speak truth to power. Folks in power are well aware of the truth already. Like you said, they're either just not doing anything, they don't care, or in some cases, I would argue they don't know what to do. And being the youngest city council person in our city's history, I think I came in with some fresh energy and really like a level of accountability that we hadn't seen before. We lost support during the campaign because, I'd knock on somebody's door and they would say, "Oh, you a Democrat? I'm gonna vote for you. Oh, you Black? I'm gonna vote for you." And we would say, "Hold up, don't you ever throw away your vote." That is why we're in the predicament that we've been in for decades, centuries, because you just give away your vote. Nobody talked to me about policy. Nobody wanted to talk about the budget items we will fight for. None of that. It was just, you're Black, you're a Democrat, you earn my vote, and you knocked on my door. And that is a very vicious cycle that we have been stuck in. And I would say the people who are currently in office, they're used to that. So why should they push for policy if the people that put them in office don't expect policy? I think you get the politics that you deserve. And if you sit back and you look around in your community and you all have not been doing politics, you get what you give.
Absolutely. And that speaks to a tweet that I saw you pull up. I'm trying to find it right now. Rob, say something,
Hey, no telling what you find on Twitter. I was getting my car fixed the other day, and this white dude was like, "You Jecorey?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I follow you on Twitter," and I'm like, "No," because I used to go in on Twitter.
Did you look over your shoulder? Did you follow me here too? You know what I'm saying?
Like, man, I'm talking crazy.
No, but it was a really it's this tweet that you put up that speaks to exactly what you said. You were replying to someone, and I'm pissed off because I'm not. Oh, here it goes. Okay. I'm just going to read it off. I don't need to share the screen, right? But you were actually responding to, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the brother's first name correctly. Forgive me. Terrain Walker or Torian Walker. Is that how you pronounce his name? Terrain Walker?
No telling who that is. I don't even know.
Oh, okay. Well, now I got to pull him up. I can't do the brother like that. I can't. I'm like, is that how you say his name? Like, I don't know how you say
Put him on black.
Yes.
Let me share the screen. Now I gotta pull him up. I can't do him dirty like that.
It's like a reveal.
Yeah.
So Jecorey, I actually got a question for you. So how long have you been doing what you do?
I've been in office since January 4th, 2021. So about a year in office. I've been doing politics, I would argue, my whole life. I just didn't realize it.
So in doing politics and in dealing with people, how would you gauge the overall assessment of the political process as far as like the local and federal level? People that you talk to, most people that you deal with, do they have a intermediate understanding of politics, or is there a lot of intensive education that you have to do in order to get things done? Because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and me, everybody knows me, I always undershoot everything. You know what I'm saying? I always assume that, we need to kind of do an overhaul and explain to people exactly how the process works. Because the thing is a lot of times, like when you go into these kind of topics, a lot of people will just tune out automatically because they'll say, well, politics doesn't work for Black people. Okay, well, if I go outside and don't have a key for my car, guess what? My car's not going to work for this Black person. You know what I'm saying? But if I have the key and then I had an instruction manual if I know how to drive an automatic or a manual, then now I can navigate with those things. And see, I think a lot of times we say that things don't work as a way to cover up the fact that we just don't know how to work them. So I think there should be like a concerted effort of people like yourself who are in the field, who are right there, who are doing these things. You're getting that $300 million. You have done this, and you have the tangible receipts to back it up. And I think probably like one of the most important things that can be done is to show people, well, okay, we're having problems getting these things that we expect. Is there any alternate routes that we can take? Yeah, we can do this. We can get these people into position, and that way, when this XYZ amount of money comes, there's people qualified to articulate being able to get that money from the government to put it towards our initiatives. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think we get lazy. We get politically lazy. Just like the car analogy, the key, you didn't have the key, the car didn't work, so I'm gonna give up on the car. If I turn on my faucet, the water doesn't work, I'm never gonna use water again. I'm discouraged.
There goes the shower.
You know what I mean? Or the shower. Or I'm not gonna cook because my oven doesn't work. I'm listing basic needs, but I would say politics is a basic need, because that water that comes out of that faucet, that electricity that you need, or that gas to turn on your oven, that is all controlled by decision makers who are tied to politicians, or in some cases, like our city, we have ownership in the water company. We have ownership in LG&E, lights, gas, and electric. That is all tied to politics, from the road you drive on to what your students, your kids are taught in school as students, to the amount of money that comes out of your paycheck. Everything is tied to politics. But for some reason, we think that it's only the politician who is supposed to practice it. And that's crazy to me. And some people might argue like, oh, well, you get paid for it. Absolutely, I get paid for it and I do my job. But a dentist gets paid to clean your teeth. But I bet you still brush your teeth every day, or at least you should brush your teeth every day. You should be doing politics every day too. It's really no different. Except I would say this is much more severe in terms of the impact on your life. People who were enslaved, our ancestors, they did politics. It resulted in a war, and we got emancipation because of it. Fast forward almost a century after the fact, they did politics, and we abolished Jim Crow, we abolished segregation. We have to do politics. If you can be a slave and do politics, if you can be Jim Crowed and do politics, what's our excuse?
Right. Now, I got one more question, and then I won't bug you no more for the rest though. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're doing fine, Rob. You make my job so easy. Like I'm listening to y'all. I'm good.
So I got a question, right? Because like have you heard about certain municipalities or whatever? It's difficult for people to get on the ballot as an independent, or it's difficult for people to register as independent. Like in some areas, you have to either use Democrat or Republican. Have you ever run into that, or have you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah, let me answer your other question that we kind of steered away from in terms of the grade. I'm gonna put my professor hat on. Okay. I would give our citizens an F when it comes to understanding politics. I would give the Metro Council members, including myself, an F. You will never learn everything there is to learn. There's too much. I would say you focus on what you're interested in, and then you really drill down on that, learn as much as you can, and then you build power with other members of your community who have other interests or similar interests, and you build that way. You will never learn absolutely everything. I don't know absolutely. Nobody knows absolutely everything. But to get to what you just said, absolutely. And in some cases, it's blocked by law. In Kentucky.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. And I don't, a lot of people know that.
Right. I can't vote in the primary for anybody across party lines. Or I'll give you another example. The fact that we're so tied and chained to the Democratic Party. In my district, District 4, in our race, there were about 15,000 Democrats, registered Democrats, about 3,000 Republicans, and then less than 1,000 others. That could be independent, libertarian, whatever. I would have never won the race if I registered for anything other than a Democrat. And it might look cute. It might be a talking point. It might be a tweet that you can make go viral talking about the Democratic Party, but the reality is, unless all 15,000 of those Democrats stayed home, all 3,000 of those Republicans stayed home, I would have never won my race running as anything other than a Democrat.
Well, see, that's my thing, right? Because here's the thing, like we just gonna all keep it 100. Everybody has issues with Democrats because of the performance and the lack of things that they've done. But what I don't think that people understand, like you said, we would get an F in politics. I think that's one of the reasons why we would get an F, because a lot of people don't understand the mechanics of the way that things are split up and the technicalities behind it. I may want to run as an independent, but because of the law or because of certain voting restrictions, I'm not able to. Now, I'm curious to the people in the chat. What I just asked about, were you guys aware of that? Were you aware that in some places you can't even run as anything other than a Democrat? Did you know that in places you can't even register as anything other than a Democrat? It was my girlfriend who actually showed me that and told me that. Remember, we was having that conversation the other day, Tony, because I had wanted to talk to you about it and see if we could do some research and actually bring that out to the table, because the reason why I say that is because with politicians like Marcel, right, who is very promising, and from the interview that I saw, he seems very impressive. You know what I'm saying? He seems to be exactly like everything that we've been looking for. It might scare some people, or it might shock some people, or because the momentum is so anti-Democrat, as it should be, that they might not want to vote for him simply because of that. And I think that we need to understand that, so that we, like we had said in the beginning, we look at the policies that are being put forth. I like that Marcel says run on a reparations policy or a reparations platform. And I think that that's a key thing that we need to start looking at, because until we have a mastery of how the political landscape works and we know little quirks and different things like that, I don't think that I think that's going to be something that could possibly deter votes or decrease the effectiveness of what we try to do if we don't completely understand the rules. It's just like YouTube community guidelines. You can say something that you don't mean to say. Next thing you know, you wake up and your channel's gone. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Let me throw an activity out for anybody watching. Hell, for y'all as well. Convince 5 of your family members to not register as Democrats. Convince them to register as independents, and then come back to this video and tell me what happened. If you can't do that, I don't want to hear you talk to any politician, any candidate, any other person who's into politics about the need to abandon a party. If you can't convince 5 members of your family to abandon the party. And I always tell our constituents, like when we're doing organizing work, if you can't convince your cousin, how you going to convince your council member? But you won't even do that very simple entry level political work that it takes to change something. You can't do that in your own household. So how are you going to take it to City Hall? How are you going to take it in Kentucky, the capital, Frankfurt, where our General Assembly is? How are you going to take it to Washington, D.C. and talk to Congress? You can't. It has to start at home.
So, Jecorey, do you think it's necessary at all for us to make a push to break away from the Democratic Party, or is it more effective to go about it in the manner that you've gone about it? Not because you went about it because you wanted to, but like you said, if you didn't run as Democrat, there's no way you could have won. It wasn't possible. But to scale it back, do you feel that it is important for us to in some way make pushes towards breaking away and becoming independent of the Democratic Party, or do you feel it's more important to kind of go the course that you've gone, where you just, yes, I'm a Democrat, but then you get in and you do what you're supposed to do for your people?
So for me, it's a matter of simple math. I could not have won my race because, as I said, 15,000 Democrats, 3,000 Republicans, less than 1,000 others. And in Kentucky, you can't vote across party lines in that primary. Impossible path to victory as anything other than a Democrat. Let's zoom out and look at the entire country. If we as Black people decided to start our own political party, what percentage of the population are we?
Oh, with
13.
13%.
Think about that. Now think about the activity I just threw out, getting your family members to leave the Democratic Party. So let's say we do have a big push. We're not going to get all whatever percentage of our community to leave the party. So let's say we get 5% of the population to be on whatever party we have. When will that 5% ever be the majority for anything, whether you get in office or not? Because if you get in the office and we get to Congress and you get to the House, your 5% is not that 218 votes you need to pass the House. It's not the 51 you need to pass the Senate. So I think people talk about that idea again to look cute and to think that they have some sort of strategy figured out. But the issue is you haven't done the simple math. We can't do anything with 5% of the population. You need a majority. And as long as Democrats have the overwhelming majority, what other pathway do you have to do anything politically?
You know, now I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I'm learning a lot right now within this, because I definitely have been one to champion, you know, we got to break away and be independent. We got to break away and be independent. I've done that quite a bit, you know, and I've stood on that strong. But what you say makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of, as you're speaking, I was just kind of going through in my mind almost as a rebuttal, but then I was kind of proven wrong within it in my head. I was thinking about the Tea Party from about what, like 10, 15 years ago, right? No, about 15 years ago, Tea Party, when they first kind of came into existence. But they're not in existence anymore, right? It was a very short-lived situation where, yes, they were able to get maybe one or two people into Congress, but eventually
the Tea Party they were still conservatives.
Yeah, they
still ran under Republican because that was like Mitt Romney and all them. What is that other lady crazy name? Sarah Palin. You know what I'm saying? They all had that. They were all still like they were in that little clique, the Tea Party. You know what I mean? But they were still registered or whatever. Like overwhelmingly, they were Republican. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give it to you a local analogy. On Metro Council, there's 26 districts. You need 14 votes to pass something, a budget item, an ordinance, a resolution. You need 14 votes. If I was on Metro Council as an independent, which I just told you it would be mathematically impossible for me to be, but let's say I was an independent, or let's say I was of the Black Panther Party, or let's say I was of some other party, I would be one vote. And we typically have people who vote in a block. I would be 1 out of 14 votes. How am I going to get the rest of those votes? Our Democratic caucus has 19 members. Those are all the votes we need. The Republican caucus has 7 members. They typically can't get anything passed. So I see it happening in real time, and they have half of the votes necessary, but they rarely get anything passed because they're still the minority. So it sounds great and as a concept, but we have to, just like I said, do the math. As long as you're the minority, you'll never get anything passed.
Right, and that's what we were saying on the last live stream that we did, Jecorey. It would have been cool if you were on there because we were talking about all of these things that the Democrats and Republicans are doing as far as like carving the different lines and carving out voting districts. And that all goes exactly to what you're saying. They're trying to create certain population pockets and concentrations, or either get this part of a metro area or get that little tail in the metro area so that they can have a larger mathematical area to work with. I have a higher probability of winning if I can just get this tiny little sliver back here, because I know most of these people are, you know, whatever political party, and that's all it is it's all a numbers game. So like when people think about this, like I try to tell people, you got to take your emotions out of it and you have to think more analytical. You know what I'm saying?
And it works both ways. It's a numbers game in the political seat, of course, but also for the citizenry. You all, a majority of your votes put somebody in office. So if you're complaining about the politician, but you're not complaining to the people who continuously vote to put them in office, you aren't doing politics. You aren't organizing with your community, whether it's Jim Clyburn or somebody else. How many times have you talked to your neighbor about the lack of benefit you've gotten from your city council person or your state representative or your state senator or your US senator or your US representative? If you haven't had those conversations, you are failing at politics. And that's why I said in my city, we might have an F. I actually put that question out Like last year, like what would you grade your citizens in your city if you had to like decide what they would get in politics? Overwhelmingly, everybody said F. And that's just work that needs to happen. But I know we can do it because we've done it before.
I want to post this comment that somebody has here, and maybe Jecorey, you could speak to it. They put, you can be independent and attached to a majority party like technocrats did with the Democrats. Do you know what this individual, with DJ L. Smitty is speaking of?
I don't know what the technocrats is, but has anybody else heard of that? I'd be interested.
I don't know. The thing that I could think of is like,
that.
I don't know, maybe it's like Bezos and Elon and like maybe they got like a secret round table.
So absolutely you could, but then it goes back to what I said. What if you're in a state like mine where you can't vote across that party line? And then I would also ask the question of, would we rather focus our political attention on getting people to register for a different party, or getting people to get something out of the party that you're already registered for, that you've already been putting into office, that you have like a zombie been tethered to really since the 60s, over 50 years at this point? Would you rather hold them accountable or throw them away and get something brand new? And it goes back to the analogy. Would you rather throw your whole car away or get it fixed? Would you rather throw your whole oven away or get it fixed? I can't afford to get something brand new right now. So I'm going to have to get somebody to come in and do some maintenance. We got to do maintenance on whatever party it is. And right now we overwhelmingly belong to the Democrats.
But
so I got a question for you. Go ahead. My bad, Tony.
Go ahead. I want to ask you, Corey, this real quick. Is it possible to hold the Democrats account? Is it possible to hold certain politicians accountable? When we say that, because I'm just thinking of like kind of what the pushback would be, and just kind of stuff in my head that's cycling. When we say hold these Democrats accountable, how do we hold Biden accountable? How do you hold Kamala Harris accountable? How do you hold Jim Clyburn accountable? How do you hold any of these people accountable? You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I can see the pushback would be when you say we got to hold them accountable. But we've seen throughout the years that we all essentially almost can't. So then what? Oh, go ahead.
Let me tell y'all a secret. And I say this as an elected official. A politician does what you allow them to do. So if Joe Biden won, which he did, look at the numbers. Why did he win? Black folk gave their vote away. If Jim Clyburn wins again, why did he win? You gave your vote away. And it goes back to what I said about political practice. Have you talked to anybody in your family about why they should or should not vote for X candidate? And if you haven't, I don't want to hear you talk to me about anything. I can't talk politics with somebody who hasn't even attempted to do politics in their own home. You can't automatically jump to the NBA championship if you ain't hit that gym, Allen Iverson.
Don't you do that to Iverson. Don't you do that. Practice. That's my guy.
You gotta practice. Or I'm a musician. I can't expect to win a Grammy if I don't.
We're sitting here talking about practice.
You know what I mean? You gotta practice. You gotta practice. There is no vote and then go home and just hope for the best. And with Joe Biden,
wait, hold on though.
He never got
a franchise player.
He see that we think we are.
You sitting here talking about practice.
So there was a man named Harold Laswell in the 1930s. He said politics is a competition about who gets what, when, and how. Politics is a competition about who gets what, when, and how. And keeping with the basketball analogy, the best teams win. The best teams win, not the best individual player. Jordan wouldn't have won that three-peat multiple times if he didn't have a team built around him. He might have carried the team sometimes, but he had a team built around him. Who's your team? Who's on your team? What are they doing? Before we go, I would love to talk through the 6 steps that King talked about that led to some political change that I've expanded to 10 steps just to drop some tools on folks, because we keep talking about tools and how you can practice. I want to be very clear what I mean by that before we go.
So we'll get to that. And Rob, you have a better memory than me, so make sure, please, help me out until that we bring that up. Because Lord knows I'll forget with the dumb quick. Just like I'm about to forget what I was gonna say before I started joking too much.
That's that silly.
You had flashbacks to your basketball glory days.
I did. I did have flashbacks to my basketball glory days. No, what I was gonna say was this, right? So essentially, the focus really should be on not necessarily becoming independent, right? But more so making sure that we're actually kind of raising up and voting in the candidates that actually express the fact that they are going to, for lack of better words, hold it down for us, like Marcel Dixon. You know, Marcel Dixon is the brother out of South Carolina who is challenging Jim Clyburn in the 6th district of South Carolina. He's running on a reparations platform. I did an interview with him on this channel last week. And as Rob stated, everything he says speaks to exactly all the issues that we have with the Democratic Party. It speaks to everything that we say that we want and we need from a politician. You know, he's that guy, right? He embodies who that guy is. So it's more of a matter of making sure that we get these guys in versus trying to be independent. Would you say that that's kind of what the move would be? You know, if I'm articulating myself well?
Going back to our toolbox analogy, there's all sorts of tools, there's all sorts of breaks, there's all sorts of fixes. I heard somebody say, what's the analogy? There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that's true. There's not really any black and white until you get into the numbers with politics. Yes, independency could be a goal. It is a goal. We want to be independent of government programs. We want to be independent of certain groups that we really are employed by and in some cases taught by and controlled by. We want to be independent of them without a doubt. When it comes to working within whatever systems exist, what other option do we have? There is no other government. There is no other country. There is no other place for us to go. I mean, you can go to the moon and do politics. You know, you need wealth to do anything. And when you are a wealthless group in the United States of America, you really have limited options. And at the end of the day, going back to what I said about slavery, going back to what I said about segregation, our people have to organize. It's not that we're undeserving. It's not that we are unworthy. It's that we are unorganized. How many of you watching this right now are involved in some sort of political advocacy group? Or are you just one person making your random tweets? You have a following. Your following could be organized to do some sort of political action. If you do a video on the American Rescue Plan Act when it's being worked on, you could direct your followers to say, yo, you need to flood your congressperson's inbox and let them know what we demand out of the American Rescue Plan Act. And it's important to do political education, which is why Black media, independent media, your media is vital, because you can teach people what we need to be paying attention to. You can teach people about the process. There are other parts, there are other tools that you need to progress through that process. But if you just simply take in that information and do nothing with it, what does the Negro Trust Fund say? A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Now, I want to make sure that I state Marcel Dixon is he is running as a Democrat, you know, so I think I want to make sure there's no miscommunication. And if I remember correctly, he's running as a Democrat for a lot of the same reasons that you talk about, mainly due to the fact that you gave the great question. Can you convince 5 people in your home to shift from Democrat to independent? You know, and if you can't do that, well, then there you go, you know. Marcel is running as a Democrat, and I'm just kind of repeating the same question over and over again because I feel like I might not have made that statement properly. You're saying that, or you, as one of the tools in the tool shed, we'll say, right? How important is it? Oh my God, I'm getting it mixed up.
I think I get what you're asking, and tell me if it hits it or not.
Okay.
So, is it important to get him in there and work him in that system? Yes, but
Yes.
he's one person. So if he's going to the House, you need 218 votes. He's one out of 218 votes. So while you put emphasis behind this one candidate, how are you going to get 217 more votes? It's a numbers game. And before you get to that number, you need to worry about different votes. You need to worry about the majority of his district, which if you're thinking of a House race, we're talking a multi-million-dollar campaign. My campaign wasn't that. I could raise a few bands and win a Metro Council seat. Can you raise a few $1,000,000 and win a House seat in the U.S. Congress? Can you raise $10 million and win a U.S. Senate seat? That's a totally different level of conversation for us because, again, we are a wealthless class. So what does it take to make sure your agenda is on someone's platform on the front end before they win, before they get in office? And then if they don't abide to your agenda, if they don't fight for it, if they don't attempt to pass those policies that you demand and got them to commit to, you have an important tool to use your vote, not just to put them in, not just to build them, but to take them out and destroy their political career. That is accountability. If you don't like the job that Councilman Jecorey Arthur is doing, you can vote him out. You can get him out of that job. That's the conversation we got to have.
Now, as you're saying that, I can hear, folks saying, so are you saying that we shouldn't focus on the Marcel Dixons, right? That we shouldn't, and that's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah, I'm Marcel for Congress. That's what I'm about. I want to make that very clear. I want to make that very clear. Marcel for Congress. If you in South Carolina, go vote for Marcel if you in the 6th district. But as you're speaking right now, I can hear some people saying, "Oh, you're kind of discouraging folks, from getting in brothers like Marcel into Congress." You see? Can you see where that kind of misconstruement of what you're saying could come from? You get what I'm saying? Because like you're saying that it's a numbers game, and we're just using Marcel as an example. We're not attacking Marcel at all, right? But you're saying Marcel is only one guy, but there are still X amount of other people that are still in Congress. So with that being said, what some people can interpret that as is that Jecorey is saying what we need to do is hold these people that are in Congress right now accountable versus focusing on getting a Marcel into Congress. You get what I'm saying? Some people can that's how it comes off. That's what you're saying. That's how it comes off. And I want Jecorey to answer to that real quick.
You hold everyone accountable.
Okay.
The candidate, the person in office, and the people around you, and everybody in between. When I talk about numbers, I'm just giving you the facts. So if your feelings are hurt, Marcel or whoever else's feelings are hurt, it's math. 2 + 2 = 4. If that makes you upset, I do not know what to tell you. I'm looking at Jim Clyburn's South Carolina District 6 general election results from November 3rd, 2020. He got almost 200,000 votes. The Republican candidate got about 90,000. Underneath him, a guy got about 26, and then there were 272 write-in votes. I don't know Marcel. I don't know his plan. I don't know his path to victory. But can you get 200,000 votes? Even going back to the primary, Clyburn got 144,000 votes. Can you get that much? Can you get the amount of votes that it takes, the majority, to win your seat? It takes money. It takes, of course, messaging, and it takes mobilization. Money, messaging, mobilization. Have you mobilized the people that it takes to get those votes? And if you have not, we're having pipe dreams, and we're not dealing with reality here. I could probably pull up Clyburn's financials, and I guarantee he's raised $2-3 million in one of these races. Do y'all know how much money y'all candidate has raised? Because you got to actually reach people. He could be given all the talking points in the world, but if those talking points don't get to the voters, or if those voters aren't convinced, just like convincing your family, it does not matter. It's a math thing. It's about politics. It's not about nobody's emotions. We're doing math and we're doing politics, and we got to stick to that.
But could people, I feel like people can easily say that holding Jim Clyburn accountable is a pipe dream as well. Because for as long as these men and women, whether it's Jim Clyburn or Maxine Waters, or I believe the other woman named Karen Bass, I believe her name is, whoever, for the many decades that they've been in office, they've done nothing for us. So what
when I said 200,000 votes, those were people. And that's why I say you hold everybody accountable. So if Jim Clyburn isn't held accountable, if he's not accountable to those 200-something thousand people, then you hold those 200-something thousand people accountable. You go out into your community, whether it's for this candidate we're talking about or anybody, and you say, this is our guy. But we keep pointing to Jim Clyburn instead of pointing to the people who hired him and who put him in office. Mm-hmm. That is who we need to focus our accountability on. If he's beyond the pale, if we will never hold him accountable, then we need to turn into community, because he got there because you put him there. So at what point are you going to tell your neighbor, the person who lives across the street from you, the person who runs a business in that district, the person who is your aunt, your cousin, your whoever, at what point are you going to tell them? And if you don't live there and you know somebody there, you should be on that phone. Because you know what I mean? You gotta organize. And that's what I said. We gotta organize. We're not organized.
But could that same process not work? Couldn't that same process work to get Marcel in office? If we're organizing within the 6th district of South Carolina, right? And I'm using your analogy or hypothetical concerning holding Clyburn accountable, right? So the people in the 6th district, we're organizing. Let's say that's where we live, and we're organizing, and we're holding the people in the 6th district accountable, right? That 200,000 to hold Clyburn accountable. But couldn't you just take that and say, instead of holding Clyburn accountable, why don't we just organize to get Marcel in? You get what I
mean? And here's what's scary about that. You're not going to convince everybody to shift those votes to another candidate, because some of them are committed to that candidate for whatever reason. I'll give you an example. There's somebody in this district that I currently represent who was about to be evicted at an apartment complex. Because of the work that I did to make sure they kept their housing, do you think that person is ever going to vote me out of office? Now take that number and magnify it, because in our district, we only got about 30,000 folks. Magnify it. I don't know how many people total that Clyburn has, but if he got almost 200,000 votes, I imagine he might have 250,000 people plus in his district. Think about that, and think about the constituency services that have been provided to those people. Yes, you can shift votes, but it goes back to what I said about convincing your family. Can you convince your family to switch from the Democratic Party? Can you convince your fellow voter to shift from Clyburn? That's your job. That's for you to do and for you to figure out. But if you can't convince enough people, and by enough, I mean the majority, to switch, the plan won't work. You have to get the majority, whether you're talking about voting in a candidate or you're talking about passing a policy. I'll give you one more example. $388 million came to Louisville. We were able in the second round of spending to pull that $100 million for homelessness. We were able to pull that $15 million, that $4 million for home repair. Now there's about 140 left. It's going to be harder for the remaining council members to figure out what to do with that money. I had an easy job because I got it on the front end. Now y'all got to fight over the remaining scraps. So earlier, it was a lot easier to convince people to support that because we had a larger pot of money. You're essentially convincing people to go against what they believe to be their own interests and shift that elsewhere and give somebody else a chance. I can't speak for the voters in South Carolina, but if you live there, you should be able to. And you should be able to connect with your friends and your family and whoever else to have that conversation. But if you can't have the conversation with them, it's a waste of time to have it with me, you, or you.
Now I want to, and my bad, Rob. We gonna get back to you. I feel like
you good.
Like Rob wanted to say something in a minute.
The finances.
I'm just taking it all in.
Yeah. I just want to, because there's a brother that he super chatted a question and or statement. I just wanted to read it off and allow Jecorey an opportunity to respond to it. Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. He said that we've been working on the Democrat lemon for 60 plus years. When do we scrap this junk party and go shopping for a new ride? The Democratic buck is wrong. The Democrat buck is wrong. Now, I feel like you probably
Yeah,
addressed
we
that
already talked
already.
about that.
You know, yeah,
Convince your family to do that,
mhm.
and then come back to this video. Like that. I mean, that's my issue with our politics. You want us to shift tens of millions of black people away from a party to a new party where we will be the only people on that party unless you can convince other people, whether that's, you know, Mexican Americans, Japanese Americans, white Americans, anybody. You want us to shift to a minority party that has no political power, no majority, for what? Just because your oven doesn't work, your car don't work. We've already beat that dead horse. That horse is dead. Let it rest in peace. And now let's get smart about the politics and let's do math. 2 + 2 = 4.
Now, Rob, what did you wanted to say something? You've been wanting to say something, so go ahead, Rob. Jump in.
Nah, like I don't know, you know. No, I'm just listening because you know, like my thing is again still like if we all have F's in politics, then that means that we all need to have a better understanding of politics, right? I think that oh man, why can't I think of his name now? I think Marcel is a breath of fresh air. Now, as far as Clyburn and all of that stuff goes, right, in South Carolina, there's some serious issues going on in South Carolina that and I pay attention to Clyburn's tweets that I haven't really seen him say too much about. Now, I haven't talked to every single person in the United States, but most of the people that I do talk to, the general consensus is that most people are not very satisfied with him. So I think that one way that we can improve our grade from a F to possibly a D is actually exploring, you know what I mean, and looking at all the possible options and figuring out how we can exercise all of those options. You know what I'm saying? Like when you talked about millions of dollars, that's one thing that me and Tony were talking about is that we need to be able to start using super PACs. We need to start creating super PACs. We need to start getting money so that we can have power and control because like there are some ethnic groups in the United States that are not party loyal. You know what I mean? They vote in blocks for certain issues. And again, like I've always said, the way that we should do politics, it should always be policy over party. Whatever policy is going to benefit us the most, then that's what needs to be backed. And the thing is one thing that was interesting about that Marcel interview, and I think that it would be like this with any politician, because there was a clip that came out a while ago where there was a white voter and he asked Elizabeth Warren about something, and Elizabeth Warren wasn't very receptive to it at all. And it was almost the exact same playbook that happened with Marcel and Jim Clyburn when Marcel and Jim Clyburn were talking to each other. So my thing is, I think that what we need to learn is we need to learn how to completely get control over the politicians. And my thing is for as far as accountability goes, I'd have to ask you the question aside from voting, because as of right now, if we like right now is not a time of voting, you know, maybe we might have a midterms later on or whatever. But currently, right now, if the majority of people in here are extremely dissatisfied with not only the Democrats, but with Jim Clyburn, be in periods between voting, how are those politicians held accountable? What's the methodology that we use between the voting times to hold those people accountable, if that's going to be the ongoing strategy? See, to me, the way that I would hold those individuals accountable is I'm divorcing them. I'm not going to give you my support anymore. My accountability for James Clyburn would be Marcel. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If people are dissatisfied with James or anybody else, they will vote him out of office. But if they vote him in office again, what was the point of all the smoke we had for him if we did not organize the people in his district to get rid of him? Otherwise, we're just talking. And don't get me
I think
wrong, I
that's
criticize him all day long. I will criticize him all day long. I'm not a voter there. So if they are happy with whatever he's doing, they're going to show that at the polls. If they're unhappy with what he's doing, they're going to show that at the polls. If you know of something happening in that district that you can amplify and you can push it to people who are there, who are on the ground, who are voting, you can contribute to holding him accountable by getting rid of him. But us talking amongst ourselves as people, I'm assuming us three aren't, I don't live there. You don't, that doesn't matter. We need to be having the conversation with the voter who is actually there, who can hold him accountable. We can only contribute, but they're the only person who can actually cast that ballot for him or any other candidate.
Well, the thing is that now, because we're dealing with the internet, now we're talking to people all over the world. You know what I'm saying? There's a couple people that I can identify in here that are from the UK. So if there's people that are in here from the UK, more than likely, I'm sure there's some people from, South Carolina in here, right? And so the reason why I'm saying that is because I think that is the thing that we need to start doing going forward. That's part of the strategies that we need to have, is exactly how to hold these politicians, accountable. Now, you talked about as far as having a conversation like with your family members or whatever, right? And you said if you can't organize the voters, the reason why it would be difficult to organize those voters is more than likely because those people are probably in the age range of our family members, and they may not have the adequate education. There's a situation going on down in South Carolina right now with Gullah Geechee, where their land, the government is about to do a land grab and try to steal all this land, this ancestral slave land from these people. And it's all over $250 sewage charges that they didn't even agree to. But a lot of these people are so old, they really don't understand. And they're just stuck in their ways. Now, my thing is I think that it's important as a media vehicle, because I may not be able to leave and go to North Carolina or South Carolina tomorrow, but the few people that listen to my channel, Tony's got a lot of people on his channel, people listen to his channel, they can spread the word. And I think that that's one of the first ways that we need to be able to organize, because all of us can't just get up and go somewhere. I would love to go down there and have a conversation with those Gullah Geechee people and ask them, well, how'd you get in this situation? What happened? Did you look at the fine print? Like what happened? You know what I mean? And then take those people directly to someone like Jim Clyburn and be like, well, what are you going to do about this? Because I saw the tweet that you just posted about, this stuff that's going on with this tribe over here. Are you going to do anything to help us because we're having these problems? But I don't think that those people are on that level of cognition where they really even understand how that works. And that's why I'm saying I think that the most important thing is to have a teaching vehicle so that we can make the appropriate decisions. Because, I think that all of these situations we get in is because of a lack of understanding and lack of education, and we're not making the proper decisions. And that is what needs to be that thing that guides towards getting the right people in office, as well as convincing other people who may not be as knowledgeable about the right direction to go into. You know what I'm saying?
Now, yeah, I mean, but going back to what you were saying about going there, that's the community's job. It isn't your job to fly to South Carolina. That's the candidate's job that's over there. That's, the people who live in that community, they should be organizing amongst themselves. A slave revolt that happened in Louisville, Kentucky shouldn't have a responsibility of, a slave revolt in New Orleans. You focus on Louisville, you focus on your surrounding community, and you could help spark and inspire other communities. But obviously you're not going to drive there or fly there and organize them. The people closest to that problem are going to be closest to that solution. So they got to organize amongst themselves.
Now I wanna read the other super chat from Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. And first I want to thank Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. He's been actually super chatting statements and stuff like crazy. He really want to get on here, but I just can't bring you on like that, Pan-Africanism. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. But we're just I can't just bring you on right now.
So it said, convince your family. Who is he talking about? Your granny who'll be gone in 3 years, or your 15-year-old kids who. So anyone who thinks that the only age groups or generations are boomers about to die and then Gen Z is politically unserious. In fact, I would go a step back and say that anyone who champions Pan-Africanism, which is the unity of all people from Africa around the world, is politically unserious. How are you going to unify Africans around the world? You can't even unify Black people in your own family. Next question.
Well, he answered that one.
I mean, like, you know what I mean? We gotta be logical as we have these conversations. Hopefully, I don't mess your bag up and he keeps contributing to you. But you're talking about unifying people around the globe, and you can't even unify your household, bro. That don't make no sense.
Jecorey, don't mess my bag up. Man, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm just laying it out. Like, we're in Louisville learning every day. We're organizing. We're pulling power. We're getting things done for our people with community. And you could take it or leave it. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what's best for your neighborhood. You know what's best for your district. You know what's best for your city, your state. You just got to take what you know and move on it. You can't sit on the internet all day. You can't sit on Twitter all day. I know it's easy to get bogged down into that cynicism. You have to go outside. You have to go outside. That's the only place you're gonna get some W's.
Now, I wanna say this, right? Because I'm going through the comments and I'm reading them. I don't believe that Jecorey is necessarily saying that he doesn't believe that you shouldn't vote Jim Clyburn out, right?
Yeah, I never said that.
I don't think that's. I don't think that's what Jecorey is saying. I don't think Jecorey is saying that you shouldn't vote him out. I don't think he's saying. Obviously, you're not endorsing Marcel because you don't know Marcel, but he's not telling you not to vote for Marcel. He's not telling you not to vote Jim Clyburn out. But if I'm reading you correctly, Jecorey, it's more of a matter of being organized and having a plan behind why you're going to, first off, how you're going to get the person that you say you want in office, why you want them in office as well. Is that what you're saying? You know what I mean?
Let me be diamond clear.
Okay.
You hold everyone accountable, the elected official, the candidate, and the voters, and everyone in between. If your elected official is not doing what they campaigned on or not doing what is needed for your district, vote them out. I don't care if it's Jimmy or anybody else. So hopefully that's clear for anybody who's listening.
Yeah.
Beyond that, if you live in that district, you're in the wrong place right now. Learn everything you can, but now take it to your community, take it to the streets, take it to your district. You cannot sit on the internet and think there's going to be some sort of political revolution behind some tweets and some comments on YouTube. I love you and I want the best for you. But if you're in that district and all you're trying to do is argue on the internet instead of talking with actual voters in the district as to why they should vote for another candidate, you are not serious about politics. And it's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would say where the disconnect kind of is, because like I said, I'm reading the comments with the audience, is that once again, Jecorey's not saying, at least how I'm reading, the brother, he's not saying don't vote Clyburn out. If they're not representing you properly, get rid of them, by all means, do away with them, right? But I also feel that what you're trying to do is emphasize the importance, right, of making sure that these conversations go beyond YouTube and the internet, right? Because a lot of people, I'm looking through the comments and, they're feeling like, oh, essentially, Jecorey is just a Democrat. That's what I'm just going off the comments. I'm not saying that these are my personal feelings about you, Jecorey. You know what I mean?
I'm straight. I want all the smoke.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like,
the reality is, we got over $100 million for the constituents in our district. What did you get for your community?
Yeah.
I was just about to say, Pan-African Studies upped it to $10.
He upped it. Pan-Africanism wants to smoke. That brother want to come up here so bad, You
don't have to convince me about Clyburn. You got to convince the voters in his district. That's what people don't get.
No,
I don't care about Jim.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what I'm really ultimately trying to get to, is that because I see, as we're having this discussion, I see some discouragement in the comment section. And I think the discouragement is coming from just maybe not a communication breakdown on your end, but just a communication breakdown in general from whoever's listening, however they're interpreting what you're saying. Right. And essentially what I feel that, and I believe that Jecorey is saying, is that at the end of the day, conversation just can't be online. We got to go outside and really, get into action and organize. If you say you want Jim Clyburn out, it can't just be on YouTube. Go ahead and, vote him out and get your boy Marcel in if that's what you want. But also understand too, one man alone isn't going to get the job done.
Yeah,
right?
Far from done. If I came on council with that attitude, I would have never got 13 other votes to pass what we've passed.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
I said one man will never get the job done. If I would have came on Louisville Metro Council with that attitude, I would have never gotten the 13 other votes to get anything passed.
Now, anything else you want to add, Rob?
Nah, I'm just chilling.
And I'm not surprised that there's pushback, because I saw somebody make a comment, maybe it's one you put up, about X amount of years we've been doing this, X amount of years we've been doing that. I think we've been doing it wrong. And when you realize you've been doing something wrong for 10, 20, 30, 40, of course there's a sense of frustration. But we got to contextualize how long people have been politically activated. I know some folks who are really engaged right now locally who just got activated in 2020 when Breonna Taylor got killed. You just got activated in 2020. You're about to come up on 2 years of political consciousness. You are a political toddler. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just where you are. I myself, I'm a preteen. I haven't been doing this that long. I haven't been engaged in politics that long. So I only have that level of understanding. I do not have a political science degree. I'm no expert, except for an expert in my personal experiences that led me to where I am today. But what we have gotten stuck in the cycle of doing, and it goes back to what Brother Ron said, is throwing something away, just throwing something away. And we can never throw away politics. You're not doing politics if you're, restricted or limited to comments on Twitter. I hate to tell you that, but it's not. When I'm in that chamber, nobody is referencing Twitter. Usually people don't even check their Twitter. And if Metro Council members don't check their Twitter, do you really think a congressperson or a U.S. senator is checking their Twitter? You got to get serious with your politics.
So in essence, and I want to go back to what Rob was saying, I believe he asked you this already. So my apologies if I'm asking the same question again, but he said, how do you go about holding these politicians accountable? How do you go about that? Because once again, we've had these guys in office, whether it's Maxine Waters or whoever, for decades. We've heard this. We got to organize. We got to organize. I've heard this for a long time. Have we, Black Americans, have we simply just not been organizing? Have we just simply been talking and not holding them accountable? Or have we been holding them accountable and they're just not doing what we want them to do? Right? Because, and I say that to say, before you answer, in 2019, you saw the rise of, ADOS, right, with Event Tone. And with the rise of them, we also saw, a rise in the reparations conversation pick up to the point to where it then hits the national stage, right? And they're speaking on it as they're debating one another, right? When the Democrats were, going back and forth, everybody's on stage talking about reparations now. With that being said, the voices were loud enough, right, to get them to speak on it and to entertain it. But once they got into office, all that stuff went out the window for them. You get what I'm saying? So if that's not a kind of a clear example of it's impossible to hold these people in office accountable, then what is? If I'm not, you get what I'm saying? I feel like I'm not articulating myself, but I think you know where I'm coming from.
So that's not accountability, because if we had accountability, Jim Clyburn wouldn't be voted into office for X amount of cycles. If we had accountability, Joe Biden would not be in office right now. If we had accountability, there would be no Kamala Harris. If we had accountability, the politicians that you complain about would not be in office. Because you, in your city, in your state, in your whatever district you're in, you would be mad enough to work with the other voters to get them out of office because they're not following through on reparations, because they're not following through on any policy that they promised or that they alluded to. So I don't think people have grasped that concept yet, that accountability is getting them gone. If you work, you work somewhere and you don't do your job, you're going to get reprimanded or you might just get fired. At what point in time are you, the tax-paying citizen who pays for the salaries of these politicians, going to hold them accountable, reprimand them, or fire them from their job? That is a question that only you in your specific political district can answer with your fellow voters. That is the key way to hold them accountable, is you get rid of them at that point, or you hold your vote hostage until they do what they claim they have been talking about. They commit to it. If they don't do it, you get rid of them. But we haven't even gotten to that point yet. Now, in some cases, I've seen small examples around the country where people have done just that. It could happen in South Carolina. It could happen in Kentucky, where a brother named Charles Booker is running to unseat Rand Paul. But the only way that he will win, the only way that anyone will win, is with a majority. And who makes up that majority? You make up that majority. Are you going to organize with other members, other voters, to get to that majority? Or are you just going to talk on the internet?
So essentially, what you're saying, right, Jecorey, at least how I'm interpreting it, is that holding Jim Clyburn and these politicians accountable essentially begins with holding ourselves accountable concerning the work that we do, within our community, organizing amongst each other to get these people out. Is that what you're saying?
1000%, because who puts them in office? The voter. Yeah, if the voter is not accountable to their own policies, why would a Jim Clyburn be accountable to your policies? Why would Joe Biden be accountable to your policies if you're not even accountable to your policies to the point where you won't give him your vote? I voted down ballot. I would have never in a million years voted for Jim Crow Joe after everything that he did to my pops, to my uncles, to my cousins, to my brothers. Why would I ever give him my vote? I voted down ballot. How many people in your family voted down ballot? How many people watching right now voted down ballot because you refuse to throw your vote away? And that group of people has to now do the work it takes to convince other people, your peers, your friends, whoever's closest to you, to do the exact same. Then you unseat that person. And don't just unseat that person for the sake of it, but put that political capital into someone else who can be committed to your agenda.
Got you. Now, anything else you want to add, Rob?
No, I just, nah. I think I think that this has been a very good, extensive conversation. And I think that more conversations like this need to take place, because if we don't have these kind of conversations, I don't think that people are gonna, the information's not gonna come out where people have a good enough understanding to make informed decisions as far as voting or as far as politics. And I also think that these kind of conversations need to take place because people need to go into the areas of not being comfortable and not being familiar with exactly what's going on. And whether you agree with what somebody's saying or whether you disagree, what you need to be doing is learning about the thought process. And that critical thought process will at the end of the day help you to make the best decision for you. And that's the point. Like, it should be a thought exercise, because I think if the thought exercises work, then at some point we'll be able to we'll be able to get that grade up. You know what I'm saying? So I do have one question for you though, Jecorey. So you voted down ballot. There's a school of thought of people who feel that unless they're receiving any kind of tangible promise for specific objectives prior to receiving the vote, that the vote should be held. How do you feel about that?
Well, you don't donate money to the grocery store, do you? You give them money
You
and you
said
expect some food to get back. So
right.
your money is essentially taken out of your paycheck. It's taken out of your property taxes. It's taken from you to pay these politicians' salaries. So you
Right. That's whether
absolutely
you
should
get the
expect
one that
something
you
from the
want.
vote.
That's whether you get the one that you want or one that you don't want.
Right.
That dictates who gets in office. So if
Mm-hmm.
neither candidate, like whether you have a candidate that you don't like, or whether you have a candidate that you do like, or whether you don't, in all three situations, you're still going to pay taxes. So my thing is when you were talking about accountability earlier, I think that tangible no vote thing was a way that a lot of people felt would be an effective method to hold certain politicians accountable. And so my thing is, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that that's an appropriate way, or do you feel that that's an effective method to hold politicians accountable?
Hold on, Rob. Jecorey, before you even answer that question, I want to, before we get too deep into that, please explain, right? Please explain, and for clarity with me myself too, please explain what is voting down ballot Democrat, because we're talking about it, but I don't feel like everybody really fully understands what that is, even myself. So please,
Well, let's
just
get the
what.
consensus of people in the comments and see if everybody knows what voting down ballot is.
All right. Well, while they're doing that, Jecorey, just what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean?
So the
First,
concept was introduced to me as voting for anyone down the ticket. So your local races, your state races, because your federal candidates or your presidential candidates are not offering something for your vote. Now, keep in mind, you can continue to vote down the ticket and keep voting down ballot if people aren't meeting your needs. But it's a lot easier to get a local elected official to commit because you can pull up on them. You know, my house is right here, not far from City Hall, actually. You can pull up on me any time of the week. I was just talking to Ron earlier before we went live. I run into folks at the grocery store and we talk politics. You know, I'm out at the park with the kids and we talk politics. You're not going to run into President Jim Crow Joe Biden. You're not going to run into Kamala. You're not going to run into any of these folks typically. So that down ballot strategy is really a way, going back to accountability, to let the people at the top of the ticket know you offer me nothing. So I'm not giving you my vote. You offer me nothing, so you get nothing. I came about an understanding of it through the ADOS conference from Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore. That was a strategy that they employed at our inaugural conference in 2019. But what I didn't know is that I had been voting down ballot. I didn't vote for Barack Obama because I didn't feel like he was offering anything for Black Americans to benefit us. I felt like he was largely just a mask. He was largely just skin color. And a Black politician does not automatically equal Black politics or Black policies. So I left the top of that ticket blank. And moving forward, we get to a Jim Crow Joe Biden. I left that blank because I did not feel like he offered anything for us, especially if he was wavering on a reparations program, a federal reparations program. That was one of my big ticket items as far as a president, and he couldn't commit to that. I can't commit to you.
so essentially, if I'm, getting this correct as far as down ballot Democrat, it's just essentially you say down ballot Democrat because you are registered as a Democrat, but when you're saying down ballot Democrat, you're essentially just saying that um, President whoever Biden's running again. Well, I'm not voting for anybody. I'm not voting for Biden or whoever the Republican person is, right? But what I am going to vote for are some of these other, maybe a particular congressman that you do like, that you do feel is going to suit your needs. It's just basically not voting for somebody who said they weren't going to do anything for you. Correct? Is that essentially what it is?
Yeah, and what's important to emphasize is that you still show up to vote for people who are offering something. And that sends a message to the Democratic Party that I came, but you didn't offer me anything, so you did not get my vote. But I'm a vote for this local council person because they committed to X, Y, and Z. I'm a vote for this state rep because they committed to X, Y, and Z. But whoever this Democratic nominee is, you don't get my vote because you didn't put anything on the table for me and my family.
Got it. Okay. Now, Rob, was there something else you wanted to
add? No, I think that was it.
Okay, because essentially, because I wanted to make sure that we had that clarity with that, because I see a lot of people in the chat, they're putting in like no tangibles, no vote, and I'm sure you remember that slogan from 2020, no tangibles, no vote, no black agenda, no vote, and essentially, at least how I'm processing it, no tangibles, no vote is the same thing as down ballot Democrat. You're just simply not voting for the person. If you say you're not going to do anything for me, you just don't get my vote. And that's the end of the story, essentially, correct?
Yeah, but what you got to be careful with is, I think to a certain extent, no tangibles, no vote, it doesn't have enough detail for me. So if I say no tangibles, no vote, again, that's politically lazy if I'm not going to ask for anything. If I have a meeting with Congressman John Yarmouth, who's the chairman of the House Budget Committee, but he's about to not run for re-election. If I have a meeting with him and he's a candidate, and I don't ask him for anything, and he doesn't offer me anything, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you're not engaging with the candidates and putting an ask out there or putting a demand out there, that's on them for not meeting whatever that demand might be. But at the same time, you didn't even ask the question. Again, politics is a competition about who gets what, when, and how. You got to explain what that what is, when you want it, and how you want it.
Got you. And Pan-Africanism strikes back with another super chat.
That's the perfect name. Pan-Africanism strikes back.
I'm gonna read it, and I'm gonna read it. And
Jecorey, and you just strikes and back to back.
Pan-Africanism is, man, he putting in work on a super chat to get this. I'm gonna put this up here, and what I do like about Jecorey is that the brother got tough skin. He don't care about he's not sensitive. So I'll just go ahead and read this off. Pan-Africanism strikes back says, I can donate $1,000 because I refuse to listen to people like this guy telling us what we can't do. Clyburn has failed, and he's protected by people like this guy. This is a gatekeeper. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so they must have missed what I said earlier. And maybe the computer glitched. Maybe my microphone didn't work. If any elected official is not doing their job and is not accountable to whatever you ask them on the campaign, or not accountable to meet the needs of your district, vote them out. You absolutely can do it. It's not a question of if you can, it's a question of if you will. And if Pan-Africanism strikes back doesn't live in South Carolina, you are as I said, you are politically unserious. You're trying to convince me instead of the people who live in South Carolina how to vote. I've already said
the thing is, when it comes to Clyburn, though, dual implications, because the Congressional Black Caucus services more than just North Carolina. So he's got two jurisdictions. He may not be a problem for us locally, but as far as it goes, when it comes to heading the Congressional Black Caucus and actually getting things done that we need from that organization, he does run that. And he's able to run that because of his local election.
I'm just saying the voters put him in office.
A person, right? But what I'm saying about is that vote
can't vote for Clyburn. A person in Kentucky can't vote for Clyburn.
But that's why it's so important that everybody is on the same page and everybody understands these processes, though, because what goes on in South Carolina is now affecting us at a federal level with this guy from North Carolina running the Congressional Black Caucus. So that's when I had went back to my point earlier. In my opinion, that's why it's so important to try to get those messages to those people in South Carolina, because their pattern causes implications at a national level. They put him in office. Now he's heading that congressional Black caucus. Now we have big problems because we're not satisfied with the congressional Black caucus. You know what I mean?
And that's who our people need to talk to. Like I said, if you know somebody in that district, or if you live in that district, you have to talk to other voters. Don't try to convince Ron. Don't try to convince me. You have to talk to the other voters. Obviously, you said you already endorsed one of the candidates, right? Then your platform can be used as a mechanism to reach some of those voters or reach the people who know those voters. But the actual people, the bodies in the streets across this country, they have to do the political work to do the exact same. You have to engage those voters too. You can get rid of Clyburn, but will you get rid of Clyburn? And that's not for me to answer because I don't vote for Clyburn.
Right. So yeah, so that's I'm glad you said that, because like I said, I think where like this kind of miscommunication is coming from is that for some reason people are getting the impression that you're saying to not vote him out or to not vote in Marcel. And I'm not making this so much about Marcel because you don't endorse him, you don't know who he is, whatever. But that's not what Jecorey's saying. Jecorey's not saying don't vote out Clyburn. That's not what he's saying.
If I lived in South Carolina, I would not ever give my vote to a James Clyburn. Not ever. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the interaction with him and a brother named Jamion Fowler from the ADOS movement who engaged him on reparations, and Clyburn walked away and he was talking real greasy. You should never vote for that man because he's not willing to fight for the debt that is owed to you and your heirs. He does not deserve your vote. Again, it's not about can you get him out of office, will you get him out of office? How many folks are you going to spread that message to make sure he doesn't get, hundreds of thousands of votes in that next election? That's political work that has to happen on the ground in that district.
Right. And I think, to be honest, you answered that very clearly. Like, Jecorey's not telling anybody to keep Clyburn in the office, and he's definitely not trying to discourage anybody from voting him out of office. I think that what Jecorey's just explaining is that
I think what you're seeing
in South Carolina on the ground by the people there is just getting active in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, y'all bugging. Yeah. Clyburn gotta go. Anybody who thinks I was supporting that, you weren't listening, and you gotta go back. Never, ever hand your vote over to somebody who's not giving you anything in return.
Right. No, honestly, what I think this conversation looks like is a bunch of people talking and a bunch of people listening who have F's in politics. That's what it looks like.
Going back to what I said, if you've only been doing politics for a couple of years, you're a political toddler. Or even if you've been doing it for a decade and a half, you're a political teenager. And think about how emotionally unstable a teenager can be. You're going through puberty. It takes time. And there are people who have been in this for decades and they still don't have it figured out. And they're still out here struggling and they're still fighting. It takes time. Everything is a learning opportunity, but never waste an opportunity to learn something new. Keep in mind, like I said, I'm elected, I'm in office. So what I'm telling you is inside baseball. I'm not going to tell you nothing wrong and steer you in the. I'm telling you it's inside baseball. We've already gotten things for our community, for our constituents, dollars and laws on the books to benefit them. And I'm willing to work with any jurisdiction, any district to do the same wherever you are. I'm accessible. I'm on whatever social media platform. But when you come to me, you better come to me like you got some sense. Are you going to join? Are we going to throw a block party and you can bring some paper plates to the block party? Because I'm not playing that.
Yeah, man. So
you mind if I read Dean's comment real quick, Tony?
Yeah. Go ahead, read Dean. And shout out to Dean. Dean, I'm gonna have you on here, brother. I know I said that like 6 months ago, but on a live stream. But Dean, I'm gonna be in touch with you, Dean, brother. I didn't forget about you, Dean. Go ahead, Rob.
I think Dean brought up a really good point earlier. I was just reading his comment that he put in right here. It says, when Black think tanks start to act like white think tanks and connect to the money via an entity with AI PAC format set up, it will be easier to guide the political process. And I totally agree with that statement. I like that. In my opinion, that's a great comment because I think that's absolutely right. It goes back to what I'm talking about about the super PACs. You know what I mean? And using super PACs to develop our politicians. You know what I'm saying? And also to have good, accurate statistical information and to understand the process, understand what election gets what person what. It's like another thing that I don't think people really know is that when it comes to each of these jobs, like a senator or a governor or whatever, those are chiefs and chairs of certain positions. So like there's like multiple chess moves that you have to make when you're considering who to vote. And honestly, I don't think a lot of those considerations take place. I don't know if the people who originally, and I'm just using Clyburn just to use Clyburn just for the sake of Clyburn, I don't know if a lot of the people that voted him in knew that his vote would come with having that position in the Congressional Black Caucus. I don't think people really paid attention to that as an implication. And I think that that's something that people need to have a better understanding of. I think that a lot of mistakes that are made is just a lack of understanding. And when there's a lack of understanding, there's going to be a perpetual miscommunication. And I think that everything that you see as a result, how it is now, is a result of a lack of understanding as well as miscommunication. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
that's all I want to say.
I'm gonna lighten it up real quick because I know you said this is your light.
Yeah,
we ain't been light at all. I agree with what Pan-Africanism just said. Like I said, convince your family, convince your peers, convince your network to do exactly what you just said. Build power, get the majority. I don't care if it's your church, your neighborhood association, if you're involved with some sort of political advocacy group, whoever that is, build that power with them and do exactly what you want to do strategically in politics. But that comment reminded me, and this is the light part. Y'all seen 8 Mile?
yeah.
Remember that there's a scene where they're all like telling each other, we need to do this. We need to put our money in saving bonds. We need it. You remember that? And then Eminem blew up and was mad. And he was like, shut up. We just broke and we so often we talk about politics, we kind of get in that 8 Mile scene where it's like, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do that. And we never, ever gel into some sort of consensus. And going back to that competition team analogy, imagine if your 5 players on that court were all running different plays. It's going to be harder to score. More importantly, it's going to be harder to win that game and continue to win and eventually get to the ship. So as team members, we got to start getting on the same page about the plays we run and about the strategies we're using.
And how do you suggest, we get on that same page? How would you say that?
So many scholars, so many thought leaders, so many political activists, so many organizers left plenty of resources for us to pick up and reuse. And they worked in the 60s. They worked in the 1860s. They worked to abolish slavery. They worked to abolish segregation. They can work today, plus some, because we're so much more creative and got access to more resources than they ever had. We got this thing called the internet. King had 6 steps to nonviolent social change. Since I have been in office, an experience that King never got to experience, and maybe he would have, I have 10 steps to nonviolent political change. And let me give them to you. Some of them overlap with what King had, but I go a little bit deeper. And I wish we had more time to discuss this and really do a deep dive into what these steps mean and how I've used these steps to get money for my district, how I've used these steps to pass legislation for my district, but maybe we can do a round 2. So number 1, King called it information gathering. I call it something as simple as you educate yourself. You educate yourself on the issue. What can be done about it legally? We just talked about how you can't vote across party lines in certain states. That is a matter of political education. If you did not know that, it's because you were not politically educated to know that. You also have to understand the target and the power structure. Breonna Taylor was shot and killed. The whole government was to blame. Actually, there were specific people in power who were to blame, who could have prevented that. You got to know the target. So education is key. Educate yourself. Number 2, communicate everything that you learned. This platform is a perfect example of that. We're communicating with people. Some people might not like what you hear, but I promise you, I'm just giving you the facts of the game. I'm just giving you what I've learned since I've been up here. You can use your platform to communicate with folks. And if you ain't got a YouTube channel, you might got a smartphone. You might got all sorts of tools and ways to communicate with folks, but you have to get the word out, because what you want to do is start to mobilize folks. But keep in mind, mobilizing is not organizing. We can have a protest and it will be a waste of time, and in some cases become dangerous because we haven't organized what that protest is about. We just showed up making noise. So communicate to bring people into that fight. Then you have to, number 3, collaborate. You're working with other institutions, other organizations, maybe other channels, other entities or blocks of power that are in agreement with your issue or align with your fight. Again, that could be a church, a neighborhood association, a political advocacy group. It could be any block of power that exists, because again, you want more people to have more power. You want majority. After you collaborate and you bring folks into that fight, you mobilize them. You have to, number 4, this is important, delegate. I'm a musician. Can you imagine going to a marching band performance and everybody on the field has crash cymbals? No, you got the drum line, you got the brass section, you got the woodwinds, you got the drum major, you got the dancers. Everyone has a role to play. So what is your role? What is your skill set? And how do you fit into the larger context of the group and the political strategy? Which brings us to number 5. You have to advocate and build out that strategy. Some sort of community campaign. We didn't get $100 million for homelessness in Louisville, where that impacts Black families more than anybody else threefold, just because I said, let's go do it. No, I had to work with other organizations. I had to work with other people, other blocks and units of power to convince my colleagues to vote a specific way. It wasn't just me by myself. It was an entire community of people, and we built a campaign around getting that money passed, which leads us to number 6, agitation. I think Frederick Douglass used this quite a bit. The Civil War, to a certain extent, was agitation. All of the protests in the Civil Rights era, agitation. You have to agitate. Who in power is your target for that community campaign? Maybe it's 14 votes on the Metro Council. Maybe it's 51 votes in the U.S. Senate. Maybe it's 218 votes in the U.S. House of Representatives. You have to put pressure on specific targets to sway them and move them to where you need them to be, which leads us to 7. Once you are at a position where that power works, you negotiate. You sit down with them and you work out what's negotiable, what's non-negotiable. King did this often, regardless of who was in power. It could have been Jim Crow, Lyndon B. Johnson, or it could have been soft JFK, no disrespect, rest in peace. You have to negotiate with whoever is in power to get the power that you're going after, which leads us to what I do and what my job mainly is. But anybody can be a part of the process. Number 8, legislate. Whether that's a budget allocation, whether it's some sort of law, you're changing something, amending something, there's an executive order, executive action, you have to actually legislate. I'm one of 26 people in a city of almost 1 million people who can pass laws. I should not be sweeping your driveway when it's snow outside. I should not be helping you chop down a tree. I should not be handing out hot dogs. I should be legislating because I'm one of 26 people who can do that. Be a part of that process and make sure that something is written in permanency. After that comes into law, because King said you got to pick up laws and make them meaningful mandates. Number 9, regulate. Make sure that it is actually working and it is intended as it was supposed to be. If it's not, you might got to go back and amend some things. You might got to go back and change it and make it better and improve based on what you learned. And 10, which a lot of people, this is a lighthearted moment, a lot of people rub this off, but it's important. After you go through these steps, some of which King clearly outlined and got victories with, you educate yourself. You communicate with other people around you about the specific issue. You collaborate with other groups. You delegate who is in charge of what. You advocate, build out a campaign. You agitate, target specific decision makers. You negotiate with them. You legislate. You regulate to make sure it's working. Number 10, you celebrate, because we have been through so much in this country. And oftentimes we are so beaten down and cynical about everything that we're going through. We never take time to sit back and reflect on those victories. And that celebration should be your motivation to start back over on a completely separate issue. Those are 10 steps that I have used in practice right here in Louisville, Kentucky, to get some political W's. King used 6 steps. You might use those steps. You might change the order. You might have completely different steps. But whatever your process is, make sure you practice it and practice to perform so that when it's time to get down to business and sit with that legislator or build with your community, you understand the steps that you're going to take to get to where you're trying to go.
And I think we can close it out with that. That was a really good conversation that we've had today, man. And I see, this is, I wasn't expecting it to go where it went, like reading the comment section with all the smoke, that some have for that Pan-Africanism have for Jecorey or whatnot. But it's a good thing because at the end of the day, I've been following Jecorey since before he was elected, right? I was made aware of him before that, right? And I followed him and I watched him, get into office. Don't get it twisted, even if you disagree with whatever Jecorey might be saying. Jecorey's riding for Black America. You know what I mean? Don't ever get it twisted. And he's riding for, his district, and he's doing a lot of good things over there, making sure that his constituents get everything that they need, And but it is also very important though that we have these discussions where there are disagreements, and ultimately we can walk away with respectfully agreeing to respectfully agree to disagree, but also be able to come together on the basis of what we have in common. That's something that I've talked about before on this channel, is us being able to come together on the basis of what we have in common. All right. So that's probably the best thing that has come about from this. Now, once again, Jecorey's holding it down in Louisville from what I've seen. And also, Jecorey is not saying don't vote out Jim Clyburn or anybody else, right? That's in office. You know what I mean? That's not doing what they're supposed to do. He's not saying any of that. At the same time, though, in the areas where we do disagree, that's a good thing because it just starts to formulate, new thoughts and gets us. What I like is that it challenges us, right, to be better, and it challenges our thinking and our frame of thinking. Like, you challenge me with the whole being independent, as far as somebody saying like I'm independent and I'm gonna run as an independent. You help me to understand why that sounds good, but at the same time, you running as an independent might not be the most practical thing to do, especially given your geographical location where you are in the country. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I was challenged on that because for me, my whole mindset is we just got to be independent. We got to go independent. We got to go independent. Jecorey comes into the picture and he goes, hey, bro, that sounds good, but check this out. And then he educates me on why, yes, that sounds good, but in certain areas or in certain locations, that might not be the move. Because if Jecorey would have done that where he is, he wouldn't have gotten into office. You get what I'm saying? So it's okay for us. I want us to understand that it's okay for us to have disagreements. It's okay for us to be challenged. You know what I'm saying? Because we need that in order to grow. You know what I mean? We need that in order to grow. You know what I mean? So anything you wanted to add, Jecorey? What did you want? You want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, unity does not equal uniformity, and that healthy debate is always important. I think this was in King's last book. Of course, we got to debate. You think everybody's going to always agree on the playbook and moving forward? And sure, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? But we got to have these conversations. We got to have disagreements to eventually come to some sort of agreement. An obstacle creates an opportunity. And here we are. And I think at the end of this conversation, hopefully some folks listen and understand. Hopefully I understand. Hopefully we all understand. I'll never understand Pan-Africanism, but hopefully, hopefully we've come to some sort of, hopefully we come to some sort of understanding about one another that will help elevate everybody in all sorts of situations. So we always got to have healthy debate for sure.
Yeah, we got to have healthy debate, So, I appreciate you being on, Jecorey. Like I said, I think this was a very good conversation. Some people disagree with some stuff in the comments. There are some things that I disagree with that just, that I didn't necessarily go too much in on. But like you said, there's going to be disagreements. That's cool. But at the end of the day, can we come together on the basis of what we have in common? And as far as the work that our brother is doing in Louisville, as far as I can see, he's doing great work for his people over there. And so with that, Rob, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I think that all politicians should get to smoke, like at all times. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like all politicians should have to come on a platform like this, and they should have to read the comments. You know what I mean? Because that, in my opinion, is the only way where there can ever be an actual transparent and honest conversation. Any politician, whether that politician is supported or not supported, we're the people that are actually going to be or not going to be serviced by that politician. So they need to get the smoke. Every little comment, we need to have Pan-Africanism strikes back up in here when, there's somebody else in here dropping the hard questions. The hard questions need to come at all times, because those hard questions are the questions that are going to get our objectives accomplished. Those are going to be the things that don't get addressed and sink us. And we never get a chance to be in the presence of somebody or, be able to grill somebody like that. And we have to be grilling, you know what I'm saying, all the time in order to make sure that not only do we get the answers that we need, but also we keep the politicians on path and keep them on target. Sometimes, you know what I'm saying, people may take advantage because they be like, yeah, you might be a little bit lax and you don't know this and you don't know that. And I'll slide a couple dollars here and I'll slide a couple dollars here. And you got a whole bunch of emojis in the comment section and everybody on you and super chats all over the place. That's some accountability. And I think everybody should. I think all politicians should deal with that. So that's all I wanted to say on that. I think that this is good. I really like what you're doing, Tony, as far as like bringing Jecorey on here and bringing Marcel, and honestly, that's the future. You know what I'm saying? Like you taking everybody a step into the future. So that's dope that you pioneering that. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I wanted to say.
Because we got to be able to speak with everyone. I am. I don't want to open old wounds. I really shouldn't go here. Oh boy, I really shouldn't go here. But I'll just say this much: I was very vocal and against the split between ADOS and FBA, right? Only because it was heartbreaking at that moment in time to see us as united as we were at that moment, just for it to kind of just come into two pieces. You get what I'm saying? So one of the things that I hope to do and that I aspire to do is that, at least on this channel, could be kind of a middle ground where everybody could, just have their say. You get what I'm saying? Because we're not really enemies like folks, like how we think that we are. Like there's so much tribalism that goes on Twitter. You got some folks that say they ADOS, some folks say they FBA, some folks like Marcel, he say they freedmans, some folks say they reparationists. And when you really sit back and you analyze the people that claim whatever it is that they claim, right, and you're just reading and listening to what they're saying concerning what they stand for, and what they want, we all stand for and want the same thing. You know what I mean? Essentially, from what I've seen, unless I'm just terribly mistaken, we all want the same thing.
Y'all see that video where it's like it was a meeting starting with black folk, and it's like, this is how black meetings go. And he's like, what's going on, my brothers? And somebody said, I'm not your brother. He said, okay, what's going on, black people? And he said, oh, we really Israelites. And it just kept going down, like people arguing about what they were called. And at the very end, he said, on Crip. He said, huh? And he shot the meeting up. That video is like such a microcosm of like so many issues within our lives. I can't speak for any group outside of the ADOS movement that I'm a proud member of, adosfoundation.org. We have an entire transformational Black agenda. We're working on a federal reparations bill. We're doing political work, writing policy, meeting with candidates, organizing communities. I can't speak for what everyone else does, but that's the kind of political work that we're doing and that we all need to be a part of to make sure that we're moving the needle in some way. like I said, you can't just live on the internet and do politics. You know, eventually you got to build that power. And we don't own Twitter. We don't own YouTube. I hear you talk all the time about you want to move independent of YouTube. That is the right mindset, because YouTube could change tomorrow and get rid of your subscribers. Twitter could change tomorrow and kill my followers off. These aren't our platforms that we own, but you can always, you know, acquire power in your community. You got an email list or a list of phone numbers with your neighbors. That's not going anywhere. You know, you can maintain that and build that power independently where you are. The internet is not the place to do it. I think you can use it to mobilize folks, but you cannot use it to organize folks. And the ADOS movement is without a doubt organizing people across this country in a way I've never seen before. I can't speak for the other groups, but we're out here organizing politically.
For sure, for sure. So with that being said, brother, thank you for joining us today. And you know, Rob, I think let's stay on for a little bit longer. So Jecorey, I'm gonna let you go, right? And me and Rob are gonna do our thing. But thank you, bro. And what else did you? There was something else that you said you wanted to talk about. Man, we definitely probably should do it at another time. It was like another set of steps that you were discussing.
I don't know, but if you want to do something else, just let me know. I'm also down if you want to hop on a Zoom or something with anybody and people can talk and we can debate and argue back and forth and talk strategy. Let's do that too. Free game for whoever. Free game and free smoke.
All right, for sure, for sure. We'll definitely do that. We'll definitely do that, because once again, like Rob was saying, that's important. I keep trying to end the stream and then let you go, but then I keep going. Yeah, I keep. I'm like, but you know, I like what you said there, and I do want to do that, right? I do want to do that because I think that's important. Me and Rob were speaking behind the scenes, right? Just our private conversation. And I was telling Rob how Marcel Dixon, who's running up against Jim Clyburn, he's not ducking anybody, right? He's not ducking smoke from nobody. He'll talk with anybody about anything. You know, he's an LGBTQ brother. And I know some folks, you know, have an issue with that for reasons that I get, because of the way that the Democratic Party has kind of, they conflate LGBTQ with, you know, black issues and whatever. I don't have to go down that rabbit hole right now. But my point is that Marcel's not ducking smoke from nobody. Right. And I'm glad to see that, you know, our brother Jecorey is the same way. He's not ducking smoke from anybody. But so I definitely want to have a session where we have you on and we have some other folks on and they can ask you questions and they can kind of, you know, somewhat debate you without it getting too carried away, you know, because that's important for guys like yourself. Like Rob was saying, if he's an elected official, he should be accessible in this way, you know, where he can be asked all the questions that you want to ask and he has to, you know, answer to that. Same thing with a brother like Marcel. You know what I mean? So we're gonna set that up. Well, we'll find a time to set that up, and I'm gonna go through this interview again. Because there was something that you said you wanted to speak on, maybe at a possibly later date. But thanks for coming on here, Jecorey. Me and Rob, we'll stay on this live for me like 10
nice
more
to
minutes.
meet you, Jecorey.
Thank
you for your time, though, brother.
All right, holla at me.
Yeah, great conversation, bro.
All right, peace.
Peace. All right, Rob. So how do you feel about how you feel about Jecorey, Rob? I know this is your first time. I've been following him for quite some time, you know, but oh, my battery about to die. I got to do struggle stream. Hold on. Struggle stream. You stay on though. You don't struggle stream.
Mode.
I got to struggle stream. No. We can't both struggle stream. No. We can't both struggle stream.
Look, I was just about to hit the button too.
We can't both struggle stream, bro. But like just like a quick 5 minutes afterthought, you know, on the conversation. I've been knowing about Jecorey for a while now, you know, but this is your first time being introduced to Jecorey. How did you feel about him?
I felt pretty good about him. I had to ask some more questions. You know, more detailed questions, some things that probably take a lot more time to answer, and you know, have a little bit more pushback on certain things. But you know, it was a good conversation, and I think that it was good for people to be able to hear a lot of what he had to say and a lot of his rebuttals to some of the critiques that he was identifying in the comments section. So, you know, I think that helps. I think it'll be real interesting to see going forward when he comes back, the methods that he used to get the money for his constituents, because he talked about how he was able to secure that money from the Build Back Better plan. And I would have to ask him, if you were able to do that, do you think that it would be an effective model for you to show other grassroots politicians how to do that, so everybody can be on the same page? Because that's important, in my opinion. I think that we still need to try to get the same objectives that we're always going for, but if there's a structured way to be able to consistently get a nice portion of the quote rise all tide policies, that doesn't hurt anything. You know what I mean? So if he's actually able to do that, and he's doing it effectively, because he said what did he say? He got 300 million.
Yeah, he said he was able to get 100 million. Matter of fact, I think that I actually have it bookmarked. He said what he first. I'm gonna put this up from shout out to Black Voltron. Black Voltron Reloaded, you've been with us the whole time, almost 2 hours. And Black Voltron, that's how he feels about Jecorey.
Black Voltron is a good brother, man.
Yeah, he's a good brother. So
good brother.
Black Voltron has his concerns, and
well, I mean,
but that's also why. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say everybody should. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody should have their concerns about a politician. Everybody should. You know what I'm saying? Like if I told like you, I do YouTube videos. You know what I mean? And there's some of you guys that like my content. Maybe some people don't. But if I told you tomorrow I'm running for office, if you guys didn't question me on anything, I would be going in on you, because don't trust, always nailed down to a commitment and always get an answer and specific answers. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, I think that, there should always be critique. There's always going to be things that people don't like, and those things need to be verbalized, and like, it's okay. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Definitely okay. It's definitely okay, man. So, so not that I'm struggle streaming. You know what I'm saying? That's a good. You gotta shut this camera. Shut this live down, man. Now that I'm struggle streaming. But overall, of the 141 people that are left in here, I'm curious, how did you all feel about this discussion overall? Did you find it interesting or informative? Was it a good discussion? I'm curious in the chat how you all felt about the discussion with Jecorey. And would you all like to see Jecorey back on? But also with the ability to be able to voice your questions and concerns to him yourself. That's what I really want to know. Would you like to see Jecorey back on the platform? But not only would he be back, but you can talk to him yourself directly. And whatever smoke that you have, you could address that with him. Is that something you'd be interested in? Let me see. Area. This brother from the jump, my man's wasn't feeling it. Arius Black first from the giddy up, he wasn't on it. He wasn't feeling it. That's funny. But we got some yeses in here. We got some yeses. Yes, no. Some people say yes. Not sure what the chat was saying. Jecorey is solid. Some people say, no, so it's a mixed feeling. Some folks are down, some folks aren't. I think we might have them on, because it's, once again, it's important. We shouldn't run away from each other, is my point. You get what I'm saying? We shouldn't be scared to challenge one another and go back and forth with one another if you feel that what somebody is saying is wrong and or incorrect. You know what I mean? We shouldn't be afraid to do that. And all too often, that's what happens out here. We see somebody that we don't like or that we don't agree with, and then we just want to completely distance ourselves. You know what I mean? But go ahead, Rob.
No, well, I'm just curious. You know what I'm saying? For people who want to see Jecorey back on, what questions would you have? And then the people who are critical and say, nah, I'm good. What is it that makes you feel that way? I'm just curious to see, like, where where the desire to see him back is rooted in, and the desire to not see him back. I want to know where those are stemming from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is interesting. For those of you, if you want to see him back, and especially for those who say you don't want to see him back, what is your issue with Jecorey? That's a really good question, you know, because a lot of times, you know, we need to be able to flush these things out, is my point. You know, we'll listen to what somebody has to say, we get a vibe from them that we don't like, or they say something that we don't like, and then we just say, well, nah, I don't rock with that dude. Explain to me why. You get what I'm saying? I'm not telling you that you're wrong, but I want you to tell me why. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So and because we need, once again, we can't run from good, healthy conversation. We can't run from good, healthy conversation. You feel what I'm saying? So, you know, if you're not rocking with bro, that's cool. I'm not telling you have to. That's cool. But, you know, break it down. What is it about, you know, bro, that you weren't rocking with?
I'm just laughing at Pan African.
Man, Pan-Africanism strikes back. I need to go live more often. Pan-Africanism strikes back. You know, Pan-Africanism strikes back. Who else don't you like? So let me get them on the platform.
Pan-Africanism strikes back. Don't like anybody.
Yeah, tell me. He likes
Pan-Africans.
Yeah, he likes Pan-Africanism. Tell me who else you don't like, brother, so I can have them on, so that you can, you know, hold it down in the super chat and ask your questions. You know, I got to check out for the record. Pan-Africanism strikes back. I'm vaguely familiar with you, you know, and with your YouTube channel. I haven't watched much of your videos, but I'm vaguely familiar with you. But, you know, now I'm curious, you know, now I'm like, let me go watch some of his videos and see what he's talking about over on Pan-Africanism.
You get Dane Calloway. You get Dane Calloway on here. I bet you he'd pop up. I bet you Pan-Africanism will pop up.
Pan-Africanism, he don't rock with Dane Calloway?
I think they had a debate.
Oh, they did. They actually talked it out.
I think they may have.
Okay, well, we're gonna shut it down with this because we just rambling now. But Black Voltron's issue with the brother is that simple TD Hip Hop Media, he didn't say black first not one time. So that's one of Black Voltron's issues, is that I guess to a degree Black Voltron does not feel that he's black first. And Pan-Africanism Strikes Back says, I think we should all go get on. What did they say? I can't read, Rob.
Edmund Pettis Bridge. If we're gonna listen to backwards ideas.
Oh, funny, isn't it? All right, so let's go. Let's go ahead and shut this down, man. We go ahead and shut this down. You know. But I do think this was a good, healthy discussion to have. It was a good, healthy discussion that we have. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, man.
Yeah.
And you know, be on the lookout this Saturday. You know, I'll be dropping my usual videos that I normally do, my commentary on Saturday. And just you know, we out of here, man. This is a record. Yeah. 2 hours and 8 minutes. Oh my God.
Nah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the whole time. Are we doing a show on my channel tomorrow or not?
Yeah, we can do it on your channel tomorrow. Yep, for sure. And
all right, cool.
Yep. So we out of here, man. Peace, everybody.
Peace, y'all.